West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
So let's take a look how Donald Trump responded over the weekend to the ruling by Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee that District Attorney Fani Willis can remain in the case and that there was no actual conflict of interest. Donald Trump gave a speech in Dayton, Ohio, where he proceeded to call Fani Willis Fanny, and I want to show you this video, but I want to make a broader point before showing it to you, which is, look, we can have an educated discussion, an intelligent discussion about whether or not you think there was or wasn't a conflict of interest. For those who watch Legal AF and who watch my analysis here, you know how I feel about that. You know I think that there was no actual conflict or even an appearance of impropriety. But I go through the transcripts, I go through the evidence, and I try to engage and understand all of the perspectives. And I'm okay if people ultimately disagree with me coming from a fact-based and evidence-based way. But here's how Donald Trump responded this weekend during a campaign speech. Play this clip.
Fani. It's spelled Fanny. It's spelled Fanny like your ass, right, Fanny? But when she became DA, she decided to add a little French, a little fancy. Fani and, Fani and Mr. and Mrs. Wade, which his wife did not appreciate. His wife didn't appreciate. Can you imagine these two people trying to take down I'm a very popular president. I mean, again, I got more votes than any sitting president in history. We have these two lowlifes trying to take down a president of the United States. But, equally bad.
Yeah, and that's the same speech where Donald Trump talked about a bloodbath, and I listed all of the other things that Donald Trump said during that speech. And what was Donald Trump also doing throughout the day? And I'm not even going to show you these videos because, frankly, I think they're inappropriate for YouTube. But he was posting AI videos of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in bathing suits and lingerie and barely dressed, and Donald Trump would put in the video Nathan Wade and Fani Willis as though Nathan Wade was kind of thinking about Fani Willis not dressed. And this is what Donald Trump was posting. I mean, this is someone who's supposed to be the leader of the Republican Party was spending the weekend posting AI videos of a distinguished prosecutor from Fulton County, AI videos of the person of Fani Willis dressed in lingerie and bathing suits. I mean, folks, it's frankly very despicable and disgusting, that behavior. Like, what adults act like that. And just think about it. If there was somebody at a company that you worked for, big, small, medium-sized company, a nonprofit that you worked out, a social gathering, who behaved that way, they should be kicked out, reprimanded, fired, sued for sexual harassment. Yet this is the leader of the MAGA Republican Party. Look, just last week when Donald Trump gave a speech and he was talking about Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, because rather than talking about issues that actually matter to the American people, this is what Donald Trump does at these bizarre traveling fascist circus things that he calls rallies. He talks about Nathan Wade and then he starts making like sex gestures on stage. Here, play this clip.
And her lover, Nathan Wade. And they hired him for almost $1 million because of his great experience. Of course, he didn't have any experience. He had experience in something else. You know that. A lot of experience.
And you'll recall over the summer, dating back from when Donald Trump started giving a lot of these speeches about Fani Willis after the indictment, he would make up that Fani Willis, total lie, like just defame her. And he would say that Fani Willis was in sexual relationships with gang members that she prosecuted. That's what he would go and say. Here, play this clip.
They waited. And I probably have another one. They say there's a young woman, a young racist in Atlanta. She's a racist. And they say, I guess they say that she was after a certain gang and she ended up having an affair with the head of the gang or a gang member. And this is a person that wants to indict me. She's got a lot of problems, but she wants to indict me to try and run for some other office. What's going on in this country is, and by the way, wants to indict me for a perfect phone call. This was even better than my perfect call with Ukraine. Remember that?
And Donald Trump's lawyer or spokesperson, whatever she wants to call herself these days, horrible lawyer, Alina Habba, would go on TV, and this was from this past week, where she goes, Fani or Fanny, whatever she calls herself, she calls herself by her name. Alina, she calls herself Fani because that's what her name is. You're the one, and Donald Trump's the one who mock her and post all of these things. Here, play this clip.
What do you think it means for whether or not he will decide to remove Fani Willis from this case? What does your gut tell you on this, Alina?
I don't think it's indicative necessarily of his actions in terms of Fanny. I think that Fani, whatever she calls herself, she's got her own issues that are outside of this case that clearly have permeated her decision-making ability. And
by the way, this leaks into the courtroom as well, as Donald Trump's lawyer, Steve Sadow, in his closing argument trying to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. The way he was describing her is he's like, well, why didn't she tell her daddy about the affair? Why didn't she tell her daddy about this or her daddy about that or her daddy about this relationship? It wasn't even an affair, just a relationship, consensual relationship between two. Why didn't she tell her daddy about it? Why would she tell her father if she was in a relationship? Who does that? Here, play this clip.
No one knew that there was a relationship between Wade and Willis. According to Wade and Willis, not a soul was ever told that they were dating or that there was an intimate relationship. Ever. They concealed it from all parties. From Daddy. Daddy didn't even know they had a relationship. Suggest that somehow in the beginning of 2021, January to whatever it was into April, that they couldn't have met in Hapeville. They didn't meet anywhere that would allow the public to see them.
You know, and one of the key points that I want to make as well is that, like, if you want to have an adult conversation by using evidence and speaking and behaving like adults, like at a bare minimum, shouldn't that be like a floor to people in positions of power, especially people who the Republicans want to give the nuclear code? It's like, we can have an educated conversation, and you could explain to me why you think that there's a appearance of impropriety, or as Judge McAfee said, an odor of mendacity, and I'll explain to you why I think that's absurd. But we can have a conversation. But like, what is this behavior by MAGA? You know, somebody comment to me, it's like the worst type of this is MAGA and Trump, like the worst, most annoying type of behavior that you see in like middle school boys is the MAGA movement that's now running the Republican Party. Like, and no offense to, I mean, because this is not how many middle schoolers are, like the really bad, obnoxious, annoying ones who find this type of gutter stuff like funny, and they need to be taught by their parents and elders that like that's not the way you behave in a society. It's like that. That's who's leading the Republican Party today. And just take a look. Like Lara Trump went on the show of someone named Alex Stein, and you may remember who Alex Stein is. He's now one of the very big media hosts, one of the big right-wing influencers. He's the person who was sexually harassing AOC. And that's one of the ways he became famous. So right away, the Republicans were like, let's make him, our superstar because of what he did to AOC. He's like one of their modern day Rush Limbaughs right now in the Republican movement, this guy, Alex Stein. So Lara Trump did an interview with him, the chair of the RNC, Donald Trump's daughter-in-law. And Alex Stein, during the show, proceeded to take a baby doll, like this is part of it, and started like punting the baby doll and then burning the baby. I'm not going to show you the burning because, again, I think it's inappropriate. Just let me show you a little bit of what this even is. Here, just play a very short clip of this. Let's play the clip.
Baby Tiff.
Gosh, Jimmy, we've told you so many times to stop bringing your baby on set.
Jimmy,
I don't know why
I'm sick
you
of
keep
you
doing this.
and your dumb baby on our set. Ah!
Oh my God.
That's what we do with babies on our set.
Tiffany's over here.
Oh, okay. Thank God. I know we're not allowed to punt real babies.
Gosh.
Joe Biden.
Okay,
is
sorry.
America.
And you see this photo here where he then burns the baby doll in this interview with Lara Trump. I mean, again, this is who the MAGA Republican Party is. I mean, just take a look even from that same speech that Donald Trump gave. This is what he had to say about Ron DeSantis, and he just starts, you see Trump, he just starts like cursing, and then he says like, I hit him low like ISIS. I hit him. I'm like, what are you even talking? Really? Republicans like this guy? Really? Here, play this clip.
CNN turned off when here we are. We campaigned for a year, and I obliterate my competition, and they said, sir, please don't talk about these people that way. They're Republicans. I said, I don't give a shit. They're terrible. I said, I don't care. No, my highly paid advisors, sir, you shouldn't talk to them about that. One of the people said, are you going to run against the president? He said, I have no comment. To me, that meant he's running. So I hit him hard. I hit him low. I hit him high, just like we did to ISIS. We hit him hard. We hit him low. We hit him high. We hit him in the middle. We hit him from on top, and we even came under the ground. We hit this guy so hard, by the time he announced, nobody knew what the hell happened. They said, what happened to him? He's a shell of the man.
And it impacts the kids who watch this. That's one of the things that I think, like, what message are we sending to our kids and our grandkids and future generations? The damage that's being done is tremendous. And this was a few weeks ago, one of these kids at the rally who watched what Donald Trump says and watch his parents. They watch their parents who like this stuff. There's WWE cosplay fascism. And watch what this kid says about Fani Willis and Nikki Haley. Here, play this clip.
Yes, sir. Let's put Fanny and Nikki in jail.
Okay. There we go. Maybe you can make that happen.
Here's a statement that the Biden-Harris campaign just released as well, though. They said, the people who know Trump best won't support him. So why should you? Those who worked with Donald Trump at the most senior levels of his administration believe he is too dangerous, too selfish, and too extreme to ever lead our country again. We agree. The stakes of this campaign cannot be higher. And while Democrats, Republicans, and independents may disagree on many issues, millions of Americans are united in ensuring we stand up to the values and principles America represents. Joe Biden stands with them and the vast majority of Americans who, unlike Donald Trump, are on the side of preserving American democracy, standing up for the rule of law, and treating each other with decency and dignity and respect. Decency, dignity, and respect. And again, we could disagree on Fani Willis. That's okay. We don't have to agree on all this. You could say, look, there is an odor of mendacity, Ben, and I think that was horrible, and I'm open. We can have that but you're posting as in a leadership position, as an adult, AI lingerie photos, AI bathing suit photos. You're saying, I don't want to repeat it, what he said in the speech. You're going on interviews as the chair of the RNC while they're kicking baby dolls. What the heck is going on here? What the heck is going on? Share these videos. Let people know what's happening. I need your help. Because the media doesn't want to tell these stories. The media wants to do a story like this one from CNN. I kid you not. This is a story from CNN that they said that does Donald Trump having sex with a porn star, does that actually help him out? And does that make him look like a tough guy? That's actually a report from CNN. They literally did a story on that. You can't make this stuff up. Here, just pull it up right here so they can see it, so you know I'm not making it up. Like what? You're saying, does Donald Trump cheating on his third wife with a porn star and then covering it up with hush money payments? And we know how Stormy described what happened. That's how the media is going to talk? What? No. That's why we need to get this message out. We'll get it out together. We will. We're in this together. Share this. Let people know what's up. Especially like independent-minded people, mainstream Republicans, not this MAGA mutation, progressive liberals, let people know, this is what's happening. This ain't normal.
It is Monday, the 18th of March of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special, River City Hash Mondays. That's right. We had a whole week last week of only clip shows. I apologize. The very, 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 very old Dell PC computer crashed weekend before last, and we had to scramble to get the MacBook Pro, which is only dedicated, or was, we'll get to that in a moment, dedicated to only broadcasting the radio station. Pretty much because even though it's a powerful machine, I didn't want to gum it up with everything else, and it was nice just to spread it out among machines. And I knew the Dell programs, WavePad programs and everything else that I would do to format, because we had been doing it so long here. Well, I knew it like the back of my hand, in proverbial speaking. Anyway, there's a bit of a learning curve because I did get the WavePad for the Mac, which is a tad different on the interface than what the PC had. So I will be customizing it as we go along. And also, a bad thing, I need to take the PC to a forensic rescue person, so hopefully I can get years and years and years of music files and Word docs that, I didn't back up. Okay, sue me. So let this be a lesson. Yeah, get everything backed up. Do it. Don't do what I did, or what I didn't do, and that was back up. So hopefully we'll be able to rescue those. In the meantime, we have to build, somewhat of a new production. And things are slightly different, but that's okay. As we were saying in a team meeting here for Netroots Radio, sometimes the universe forces you to, update. And here we are. Okay. So I suppose what I should do is open up these tabs so that I have an idea about what we are doing here. Oh my gosh. And, so maybe I should give you a little bit of rundown about what has happened with mom's surgery. Now, you know that before I had this problem with the PC, we were having a surgical procedure to install a stent in the carotid artery of my mom's carotid artery, which is 90% blocked. And unfortunately, because maybe did I tell you this before we before we crashed? I don't know. But regardless, it didn't work. The blockage was sort of deep in the artery, apparently. And the angle of attack to get the needle or whatever it is that they do to open it up and then get the stent in there was so steep, it kept the pressure kept pushing the stent out. So they tried that twice, didn't work, and they shut it down. So we'll be going in on the 27th for a follow-up and make our plans to do what they call a more open surgery, which means she'll have to go under general anesthesia, which is an issue because, we want to make sure her heart can handle it, but it's still not as invasive of a surgery as the hip replacement. And that really did tax her heart. So this one isn't as bad. And we have to do it because my sister asked the surgeon, well, what is the rate of blockage if we don't do anything? And it's like 3 to 4% per year. So that doesn't give us much time before she could have a big stroke, and we don't want that. No one would. So we'll go in and find out when we're doing the next procedure. Now, little Precious, also in the midst of this, had some oral surgery and had a lot of teeth taken out. Now, apparently dogs have lots of teeth. So it was a little sad, all these little teeth, and there was a few of them too. But she is doing so much better in terms of her oral aspect. But what is endemic to small dogs like English Yorkshires is a problem with their legs. The kneecaps want to keep pushing out, and she may be getting bow-legged in the front, which is also an issue, and we'll have to take care of that as well. So little Precious goes in, I believe, on April 10th. I have to look, but early April, to have surgery on one leg, back leg, and then the other back leg. And we're not supposed to let her run or anything, but try doing that with a dog when they're out on a leash. And the vet said, we'll put her on a leash. Okay, we'll try. Anyway, what do we have in store for you? I could just go on, but we had a particularly long clip because, first time back under using relatively new software, though it's not unknown to us. We've used it before. It's just that, like I said, the interface is a little different. There's a bit of a learning curve, and go searching for things in a different manner than how we searched for them before, and it slows it up. So thought on the first day back we would give ourselves a little bit of room for error. Yeah, so we can catch up. Anyway, what do we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Yeah, Trump freaked out totally about Fani Willis, not Fani, during his Ohio speech after losing his disqualification motion. That's a nice way of putting it, isn't it? Yes, it is. On the rest of the menu, an open seat on the Ohio State Supreme Court could flip partisan control away from the MAGA GOP. And who wouldn't want that? The MAGA GOP wouldn't want it, apparently. The GOP-controlled Kentucky House voted to defund diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at the state's public universities. Yeah, it's been going around, huh? And Wisconsin voters will decide on 2 GOP-backed measures that would ban private money to help administer state elections. They just hate voting. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a prominent European far-right figure was prevented from giving a speech at an event in Switzerland and thrown out of the region where it was taking place. And Latvia has started criminal proceedings against an EU Parliament lawmaker suspected of spying for Russia. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. page at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page to the left from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page. And now more than ever, because of our hardware and software issues, if you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, thus becoming a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us pay the bills and put some towards getting the needed hardware and software that is required to run this powerhouse of resistance. So thank you for those of you who have been so generous in spite of our recurring problems. Thank you for being there for us, because we're here for you as well. So thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, wherever, you could do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that and all of those. And then we all take care of Facebook, but Tom takes care of them anyway. So thank you, Tom. Follow me on all those social media platforms at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. That way you have quick access to the actual articles by the actual reporters. And if you follow my social media feed, you will have quick access to those articles. So do it. You can also follow the show, such as it is. I'm going to get them up on other media platforms, but on Twitter you can follow the show at Cookbook West. You can follow the show on Facebook at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, such as it is. So go ahead. And most importantly, if you could pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, Audible, please do so, because it would be nice. We put them out there and people listen to them. So that's great. Thank you. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Julie Carr Smythe and Christine Fernando. It has been nearly 4 decades since liberal-leaning justices held a majority on Ohio's Supreme Court. Democrats hope this is the year that changes, and a campaign that will begin to take shape with tomorrow's primary. Tomorrow being Tuesday, of course, they'll be choosing a candidate to compete for an open seat on a court that will be at the center of fights over redistricting, public education, health care, environmental issues, and criminal justice. But it is abortion that Democrats hope will be a game changer in a state that has swung from centrist to reliably Republican over the past decade. The Ohio Supreme Court is expected to shape how voter-approved constitutional amendments that enshrined reproductive rights in the state constitution will be implemented. I don't think it's an overstatement to say reproductive freedom and abortion access is at stake in this state Supreme Court race, said Kelly Copeland, executive director of Pro-Choice Ohio. It will be a consequential year for state Supreme Courts around the country, with 80 of them on the ballot in 33 states. Ohio is among only a few states where it is possible for voters to flip partisan control of their Supreme Court, and already activists and the major parties are bracing for an intense and expensive campaign. Bruce Schreiner of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. The Kentucky House voted on Friday to choke off funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at public universities following an impassioned debate that had a GOP lawmaker dismissing DEI efforts as a failure and Democrats defending them as pillars of support for students from underrepresented groups. The overhauled bill passed the House by a vote of 68 to 18, sending it back to the Senate, which passed a much different version. House members stripped away the Senate's language and inserted a replacement that takes a tougher stand on DEI initiatives at public university campuses. The Senate will decide in coming days whether to accept the new version. The GOP has supermajorities in both chambers. Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Wisconsin voters are set to decide next month whether to make it unconstitutional to accept private grant money to help administer state elections. One of two Republican-backed ballot measures that Democrats say are meant to make it harder to conduct elections in the presidential battleground state. The constitutional amendments on the state's April 2nd ballot also include a change to allow only election officials designated by law to administer elections. If a majority of voters approve, the amendments would be added to the state's constitution. Early in-person absentee voting is scheduled to begin tomorrow, Tuesday, and can be offered through March 31st. Since 2020, Republicans in at least 27 states have outlawed or restricted private election grants. The Wisconsin measures are supported by Republicans and conservative groups and opposed by an array of government watchdog and liberal groups, including the ACLU, Common Cause Wisconsin, Wisconsin Conservation Voters, and the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. Not a single Democratic lawmaker voted for the amendment, which is being split into two questions for the April ballot. Well, up to their old tricks. Let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, Imagination Wanted. Despite its title, the new Blumhouse release, Imaginary, could use some imagination. It's a shame because it could have been a genuinely scary movie and includes a plethora of themes that could have made for an interesting film, including childhood trauma, mental illness, loss, and the difficulties that arise from being a step-parent. However, despite its potential, Imaginary never quite gets off the ground. Set in modern-day Mississippi, it tells the tale of Jessica, DeWanda Wise, a successful children's author and illustrator who moves into her childhood home with her new husband and two stepdaughters. The transition is hard on all, but especially the younger girl, Alice. So when she starts to take solace in a teddy bear she finds in the basement and claims it as an imaginary friend, it seems like a good thing. That is, of course, until Alice's new friend starts persuading her to engage in behavior that becomes increasingly more disturbing and dangerous as things progress. The idea of a child's powerful imagination and the blurring of the line between reality and fantasy is not a new one. Even Alice's name is reminiscent of a certain classic children's story. While director Jeff Wadlow could have taken this further and even perhaps have shown a darker take on the Alice story, instead he relies on common horror movie tropes and the whole thing starts to feel like a paint-by-numbers, middling horror story. It's too bad because both Wise and Piper Braun, the child who plays Alice, are quite good and do the best they can with the material. However, that's not nearly enough to make up for the flaws in Imaginary. Despite a few scares, no dying of fright here, you're more likely to doze off from boredom. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American Science Quickly. I'm Jeff Delvicio. Quantum and cryptography. Those two words might strike fear in the minds of the uninitiated. But in February's issue of Scientific American, we have a story about how they're colliding. Here to walk us through it is Kelsey Houston Edwards. Kelsey's a mathematician and journalist. She formerly wrote and hosted the online show PBS Infinite Series. And she wrote this month's story called Tomorrow's Quantum Computers Threaten Today's Secrets. Here's how to protect them. Welcome to Science Quickly, Kelsey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's jump right into this mathematical quantum tension. How is quantum computing an issue for cryptography?
So cryptography is the art of sending messages in a way that someone in between cannot read them, that only the sender and receiver can read them. And there are essentially two different ways that this is done right now. And the first one is a sender and receiver have the same key, and they use that key to lock and unlock a box. And the message is securely locked in the box in between. The problem with this type of cryptography is that the sender and receiver of the secret message need to have the same key beforehand. It doesn't work if the sender and receiver have never spoken before. So if you want to securely send your credit card information to maybe a clothing store online that you have no prior contact with, you don't have that secret key with them. You need to use something that's called public key cryptography. That's done entirely in the open, and it's always done between two parties with no prior communication. And that type of cryptography, at the heart of it, are very hard math problems. And quantum computers, if they were big enough, could solve these very hard math problems. If a quantum computer were to solve the very hard math problems that are at the heart of public key cryptography, then the cryptography wouldn't work. It wouldn't be secure anymore. And we rely on it to send information in many, many, many contexts in the modern world.
I think on that point about using it to send information, this public key cryptography, it's kind of an invisible system for most people. You don't think about it. You mentioned, making a purchase at an online clothing store. How deeply does encryption go? Like what kinds of systems, is it all data basically?
Public key cryptography is all over the place. It is in many, many, many systems that you use every single day. But I think most cryptographers would tell you that if cryptography is working well, you don't know that it's happening. It's happening behind the scenes. And if everything goes well, you will never know what is happening. It's only when cryptography fails that we really hear about it. So, for example, every time that you start an online transaction with your bank or anywhere else that's secure, many other kind of video messaging services, things like that, every time you start it, they're going to do a public key cryptography transaction, essentially. And they're going to exchange this private information in a public way. When you log into your bank, it's also used to verify that information is coming from a reliable source. So when your phone updates, when it says, please download this new update, you want to make sure that that is really coming from Apple or whatever other company owns your phone. And the reason you can be sure that information is coming from a reliable source is public key cryptography.
So basically, it's baked into everything we do these days.
Yeah. Public key cryptography, you're using many, many times a day.
And so the prospect of losing that security, you talk to a bunch of experts in the field about this. What does the world without this look like?
I think most experts don't genuinely feel that we will have a world without this cryptography, because quantum computers can break this type of cryptography, but only larger quantum computers than we have right now. This is a problem about larger quantum computers in the future, and we know how to solve it. We actually have new kinds or alternative kinds, actually many of them are not new, but alternative kinds of public key cryptography that quantum computers cannot break, or at least we don't know how to break them with a quantum computer. So we know the solution to this problem. We know how to change our systems so that a quantum computer is not the threat that it is. But changing systems is very, very hard. There are a lot of people and institutions working to shift everything over, but it's a very long and slow process. And the hope is that it will happen before quantum computers can really break our cryptography.
So on that, the sort of timeline for this, for somebody who's sort of been around long enough, it reminds me of a thing that used to exist, which was this sort of specter of massive disruption and crash in the Y2K bug, which was a software issue in 2000 where all these old computers, which, had been coded with the date as 2 digits, not 4 in terms of the year to save space, because, computers were large, but also not great with storage. When that was supposed to roll over to the year 2000, there was an assumption that everything would sort of fall apart. That didn't happen largely. But now we have this thing called Y2Q. So could you tell us a little bit about what that is? Is it just kind of a fun way to talk about this new thing?
So a information security company sort of came up with this idea of Y2Q, year 2 quantum, as an analogy with Y2K. It's not as precise because we don't know when a quantum computer will come. We knew exactly when the year 2000 would come, but we don't know when there will be a large enough quantum computer to break cryptography. But they're trying to point out that we should be looking forward to that date, whenever it is, and we should be making all of our changes now before that. We should be concerned, especially because there's this uncertainty about when a large enough quantum computer will be built, and we should be making changes now. There's an additional reason to change cryptography now before the problem arises. And that's because a future quantum computer could retroactively decrypt messages that are sent now using standard cryptography of today, the things that your computer is doing right now. That's not such a concern in many applications. For example, if you send your credit card number online, if a quantum computer is invented, or a large enough quantum computer is invented 20, 30 years from now, you probably have a different credit card number, so that's probably not a concern. But hospitals are storing medical records or sending medical records using this kind of cryptography. Governments are sending national security, very highly classified information using this kind of cryptography. And that information you probably want to be secret for more than 20 or 30 years. So it's kind of alarming that in 20 or 30 years, you could decrypt anything that's sent securely now. So we want to really change over these systems now to keep things secure for the long term.
Do you get a sense of where a computer like that might be built? Is it on the horizon? Are there candidates out there? Are there rogue governments building large quantum computers?
Yes, there is, of course, this possibility that someone somewhere has a quantum computer to solve these problems, but that seems very, very unlikely. I think most experts feel that we would know about such a thing. When you ask experts in quantum computing, what will a future quantum computer look like and what is the timeline, Their answers are quite varied and often include a lot of uncertainty. But I think that uncertainty is part of what makes cryptographers nervous. Cryptographers need to prepare for quantum computers, and even the experts in quantum computing can't exactly tell you when it's coming and how. So that uncertainty makes the issue all the more important to address right now.
It's a system that pretty much holds up our digital society as it exists. So probably reasonable caution and worry there.
Yeah, there is movement to change these things. So right now, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, NIST, is standardizing new types of public key cryptography, which will be implemented in the future in all systems. That may take a long time, but they will be implemented. And we hope that those new types of public key cryptography cannot be broken by a standard computer or a quantum computer. But there's actually never a guarantee in cryptography. No one knows for sure that those are secure. So it's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game with cryptography.
Well, it's a really fascinating subject, and it seems incredibly important on the long term, maybe, but incredibly important to everything. So thank you for reporting on it. It's really fascinating. And if you want to learn even more about quantum cryptography in the coming issues, read Kelsey's story in the February issue of the magazine, where you can also learn more about Bob, Alice, and Secret Brownies. I'm just going to leave that there and let you figure it out. scientificamerican.com. Kelsey, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and talking to us about it.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Kelsey Houston Edwards is a mathematician and journalist. She formerly wrote and hosted the online show PBS Infinite Series. Science Quickly is produced by me, Jeff Del Vizio, and Talika Bose. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for more science news, go to scientificamerican.com. For Science Quickly, this is Jeff Del Vizio.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. We reported extensively last year on the alleged tampering of electronic vote tabulators in Michigan following the 2020 election. The first of 3 trials is imminent, but after failing to appear at multiple court hearings, one election denier defendant faces even more charges. Reuters reports that Stephanie Lambert Juntilla was part of a team of lawyers connected to Sidney Powell, who led former President Trump's court challenges of the 2020 presidential election results. She was allegedly in the room when Matthew DePerno, a candidate for Michigan Attorney General, and Dare Rendon, a Michigan state representative, attempted to access the data in a Dominion Voting Systems electronic ballot tabulator in a suburban Detroit hotel room. The 3 were charged with conspiracy and unlawful possession of a voting machine last August. Trials were originally scheduled for early March, but according to the Michigan Advance, Lambert Juntilla failed to appear for 2 pretrial hearings, and an Oakland County judge issued an arrest warrant March 8th. Reuters later reported that March 13th, while under indictment and subject to an arrest warrant, she was in a Washington, D.C. courtroom representing Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne against Dominion Voting Systems' $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit. Lambert Juntilla's trial is scheduled to begin April 1st. We have more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
Are frozen embryos children? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The recent Alabama case involved embryos created in vitro and accidentally destroyed at the fertility clinic where they were being preserved. There, as is typical in vitro fertilization, an egg and a sperm were joined in a lab to create an embryo that can be stored for decades. The adults sued under the state's Wrongful Death of a Minor Act, and the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that the fact that the embryos had existed only in a lab and had never been implanted in a uterus was irrelevant. They said that the laboratory embryos were children, unborn children, regardless of their, in the court's words, location. The rationale? Life begins at fertilization. Those fertilized eggs in the lab were children, unborn children. In the Chief Justice's words, little people. In response to the in vitro decision, the Alabama legislature passed a law that protects IVF clinics from lawsuits. But the Alabama case and its rationale remain. Under Dobbs, that's the Supreme Court case that reversed Roe v. Wade, women no longer have the right to make their own reproductive choices. That decision is now up to the government. So, what used to be a woman's right to choose is now a matter of legislative roulette. And as the croupier says at the table, round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the upper 70s with abundant sunshine throughout the day, winds light and variable, generally clear tonight with lows in the mid-40s, winds light and variable. Then tomorrow, lots of sun with a few passing clouds, highs once again in the upper 70s. Winds will be out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, picking up. And it looks like we may have a lot of rain coming into the area towards the end of the week and continuing through the weekend and for several days past that. We'll see how that goes. Looks like pollen is rated as none here in our little hamlet of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 47 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is moderate at level 3. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.17 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 77%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 58 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 63 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 62 and cloudy. Bagram is 46 and clear. Looks like Hong Kong is 51 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 42 degrees and fair. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 71 and clear. San Francisco, California is 53 degrees and mostly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 29 degrees and cloudy. And New York, New York is 46 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. A prominent European far-right figure was prevented from giving a speech at an event in Switzerland and thrown out of the region where it was taking place. Martin Sellner of the Identitarian movement said in a video posted on social media network Twitter, I'm not calling it X, that he had been invited by a local group, the Junge Tat, or the Young Deed, to talk about re-immigration and the ethnic vote and what happened at a recent meeting in Germany that prompted a string of large protests there. Re-migration refers to the return, sometimes forced, of non-ethnically European immigrants back to their place of racial origin. Sellner, who comes from neighboring Austria, said that a few minutes after he started speaking at the event on Saturday, the electricity was turned off, and he was taken to a police station. Then he was told he was thrown out of the Aargau canton, that's a state, of course, and escorted to Zurich. Regional police said in a statement that they tracked down the Junge Tat event in the small town of Tegerfelden on Saturday after receiving a number of tips. They found some 100 people at the venue and said that after the landlady found out about the contents of the planned meeting, she canceled the contract for it. Police said they told organizers to end the event, but they did not obey. Without identifying Sellner by name, they said the speaker was held and ordered out of the canton to safeguard public security and prevent confrontations with opponents. Germany has seen large protests against the far right following a report that extremists met in Potsdam in November to discuss the deportation of millions of immigrants, including some with German citizenship. Sellner presented his re-migration vision for the deportation of immigrants there. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche. Here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Latvia's State Security Service has started criminal proceedings against a European Parliament lawmaker and a citizen of the Baltic country who was suspected of cooperating with Russian intelligence and security services. Latvian media outlets reported that the security service, known by the abbreviation VDD, has been investigating the activities of Tatiana Zdanoka, age 73, and her alleged Russia ties over the past several weeks since reports were published in January by Russian, Nordic, and Baltic news sites saying she had been an agent for the Russian Federal Security Service, or the FSB, since at least 2004. The European Parliament said late January that it had opened an investigation into news reports that a Latvian member of the Assembly, Zdanoka, has been working as a Russian agent for several years. The European Union's legislative body, based in Strasbourg, France, said it was taking the allegations very seriously. Following a joint investigation, the independent Russian investigative journalism site The Insider, its Latvian equivalent regarding Baltica, and the news portal Delphi Estonia, and Swedish newspaper Expressen, published on January 29th a number of emails that they said were leaked and showed her interactions with her handler. said Anoka had been spreading propaganda about alleged violations of the rights of Russians living in Baltic countries and arguing for a pro-Kremlin policy, among other things. She has also refused to condemn Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, and hopefully we won't have these elongated gaps because we're trying to figure out how to do this. Well, we'll catch up tomorrow. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.